The theory of evolution largely relies on natural selection and argues that the fittest members of a species are the ones that are most likely to survive and most likely to pass their genes on to the next generation. Scientists that study the theory of evolution have long been interested in the prevalence of cooperation in different species. Dr. Stuart West summarized the interest in and possible reasons for cooperation in one of his research articles when he said, "Natural selection favors genes that increase an organism's ability to survive and reproduce. This would appear to lead to a world dominated by selfish behavior. However, cooperation can be found at all levels of biological organization. There have been many studies done to explain the reason that species cooperate from an evolutionary standpoint. But a question that has been less explored is the reason for intergroup conflict. Why do the species that cooperates in a group have conflict with other groups of the same species? This kind of behavior would seemingly decrease fitness, but it is a behavior seen in many species. In this research article, Cause and the Consequences of Intergroup Conflict in Cooperative Banded Mongooses, scientists investigate this behavior and how it affects their fitness. Scientist Thompson and colleagues recently completed a 16-year naturalistic observation of 43 mongoose groups in Queen Elizabeth National Park, Uganda. The researchers visited the groups every 1 to 3 days to record observations, locating the groups by fitting 1 to 2 individuals with radio collars. To tell the mongooses apart, they marked them with color-coded collars or shaved different patterns into their fur. Thompson observed several actions including violent conflicts, cooperative breeders, such as babysitting and escorting, and intergroup interactions, any occasion that two groups saw and responded to each other. They also recorded the effects of these actions and monitored the females' reproductive cycles. To analyze the data for intergroup conflict, they used a generalized linear mixed model. By using this statistical test, they examined the intergroup interaction depending on the reproductive cycle or ecological conditions, such as weather and population density. They also investigated if the intergroup interaction is associated with the survival rate of pups. The researchers found that groups were more likely to be involved in an interaction with another group as population density increased. They found that this effect was multiplied when rainfall was low. They observed that the probability of being involved in an intergroup interaction was higher for larger groups. They also found that groups were more likely to engage in conflict when they were in estrus or when they were receptive to breeding than during any other reproductive phase. When it came to population growth, large groups that grew in size were more likely to be involved in an intergroup interaction than groups that shrank, but there was no significant difference for small groups that changed in size. They found that a litter was significantly more likely to die if the group had interacted with another group after birth. Adult survival was affected in that individuals were more likely to die within 3 days after an interaction than if there had been no interaction. Surprisingly, when it came to abortion, a female was significantly less likely to abort if her group had been in an interaction while she was pregnant. The regularly violent mongoose groups showed expected and understandable results. They were more likely to be violent when they had ecological limitations, such as a large group size. An unexpected result was that concerning the females' reproductive cycles, particularly when they were in estrus, when they were due to give birth, or when they had just given birth. Thompson and colleagues concluded that this was due to competition for mates, which was also seen in studies of chimpanzees. Again, the most surprising result was that the females were less likely to abort their pups when intergroup conflict was high, seen in Figure 2, which might have been due to high outgroup conflict, which would in turn lessen in-group conflict, but no solid reasoning was found. Maybe the organisms that had the most offspring were similarly protective in this type of social environment. Perhaps these behaviors are passed on by generation. Thompson concluded, however, that intergroup conflict is driven by competition for resources and mating. Understanding the unique behavior of banded mongooses requires looking back in our studies of mating systems. The group formed what can be described as a hybrid promiscuous system. A promiscuous system is a mating system in which all the females mate with all the males, which reduces infanticide. However, mongooses have a hybrid system because although promiscuous and cooperative breeding were seen within groups, intergroup conflict is also present. This causes a competition for females over other groups, which in a polygynous system is not present. Looking back on the functions of hormones may provide insight to the surprising abortion results. The female's trend to not abort in the face of intergroup conflict could be a hormonal reaction. Perhaps a higher level of oxytocin or the love drug is produced in times after the birth of the cubs, causing females to be more protective of their offspring. Thompson has also observed that the female reproductive cycle could be changed based on conflict. So maybe a shift in the onset or delay of estradiol or progesterone affects the protective behaviors in females shortly after the delivery of their offspring.